Copper is the most handsome and good-looking of the Copper family, as he informs me, and I want to make sure you all know about. He's with Storage 101. Many of you are familiar with his father, Bob, who I've known for many generations. We're proud to see such upstanding folks being raised in our industry and so successful. Stacy Maxwell has been with us at Universal Storage Group for 23 years. She's the Vice President of Marketing for the company, a nationally known speaker, as Brett is also. And these two have entertained several audiences with this very topic. So today, the two of them are going to have a discourse and a discussion. We will keep them from knocking each other out about the attributes, pros, and cons of what everybody's calling manned or unmanned facilities. So let's give them both a big welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having us. Let's see. I think first we wanted to talk about the types of remote management.
Yep.
Because it seems to be that oftentimes people think you either have somebody there or you don't have somebody there, but there's actually some hybrids in between there. So we wanted to talk through these. A hybrid model is more like you do have managers on site, but they're only there a couple of days a week, not every single day. And the other days, the store is covered by like a sister store. So that's a hybrid thing. A remote coverage is more like you actually do have a manager on site, but the store is mostly covered by a sister store most of the time or an emergency situation. So it could be an annex location to a larger location that's operated fully remote, but there's an office that the customer can go to deal with a real human. And then unmanned, completely unmanned, there's no office hours, not a whole lot of face-to-face interaction. It's mostly phone and web. But they may provide video interaction. You've seen some of the software that handles some of that. Do you have any of your properties that have videos?
No, we do not use it, but
Okay.
a lot of our competitors do.
Yeah, so I think that's really interesting how they do that. And then we have a list here of some pros and cons of all types of remote management. For the pros, of course, you do see some cost savings, the labor overhead, things like that. There's a little more flexibility with your hours, flexibility with being able to serve your customer online. It forces technology integration. You have to have a lot of technology on site for remote management. There's enhanced automation that comes along with that technology. With all of that, it does reduce human error. Now, it doesn't reduce customer human error.
If we could solve that, we would have $1 billion. I can tell you that right now.
Exactly. Yeah. Do you want to go?
Yeah, sure. I'll jump in because there are going to be pros and cons. Anybody that tells you one way or the other is the right way to do it, it's just wrong. There's always some sort of in between. Even really the remote management companies don't even use unmanned anymore because we really have to have people. There's no way around it. Unless Elon comes up with some ability to send someone there and overlock and clean units and all that, we'll never get around it.
Yeah.
The difference, like you said, is that could be a hybrid approach where you have somebody there 20 hours a week or even 40 hours a week at giant stores, but yet they're doing reduced capacity. Or it could be somebody going by one day a week as a boots on the ground, a 1099 contractor. And there's really anywhere in between. And we'll get into really how that would even differ, even if you have somebody on site, more how that differs from the traditional model.
Yeah, for sure. And another pro that we saw with the remote model was the pandemic preparedness. Anyone who had the technology in place to do remote management when COVID hit, we didn't miss a beat. The store had continuity of service. And so that was a big plus for us as well. Some of the cons, of course, security concerns. You have to beef up your security. You got to have cameras at every turn and every corner and make sure that's there. There's a little bit of a lag in customer service because you don't have that face-to-face interaction, so that can drop there. Maintenance challenges. I'm sure you guys deal with a lot of maintenance challenges, identifying it early and getting it taken care of, getting somebody out there to take care of it. Communication issues. A lot can be lost in translation in the form of email or text message or social media messaging, not being able to actually verbalize in person with someone, have a discourse and conversation. Sometimes tone and inflection are not conveyed there. Emergency response time. If you don't have a person on site showing up every morning and walking the property, you may not have when something bad happens that you have a break-in or something like that. Does that happen pretty often, you think?
Yeah. So a couple of those pieces. One, security-wise, which a lot of people obviously bring up. Internet-based cameras are pretty essential for remote, just so that you can have somebody that can end up looking at it. But about 95% of all storage break-ins are at night. At the end of the day, it's not when your manager's there. Anyways, I think one of the solid arguments for traditional is that if you have somebody going by 5 days a week, every morning doing a lock check, sometimes you can find those issues sooner than if it's a 1-2 day a week type person. But certainly there's not more break-ins for one or the other. Statistically, it's just that the ability probably to catch those things, I think, is faster in that case.
Yeah, identify it faster. So, and then the last two little pieces there, technology costs. Technology costs money. It costs money. So you have to put that money up front to get that installed. And then you have a dependence on technology. So what happens if we have a true catastrophe and there's no power, there's no grid, there's nothing? So you have to think about things like that.
Yeah, to your point, we actually agree on this. We probably agree on more things than people would expect. And
Yeah.
just so everybody knows, if you're expecting something contentious, especially if you know my family at all, we like arguing and fighting. It's fun. But we don't do that here. We have a lot of respect for each other. She's known me since I was probably this tall. And we probably agree on a lot of things, both ways of doing it right. I worked at CubeSmart, worked public before that, been all over and done it the traditional way. I think last time I tallied, I've probably hired and trained about 300 managers in my lifetime. And that's get up from a desk, go shake their hand, show a unit the whole traditional way. And I think that's valuable. But I agree on technology because there are competitors and other people who do it that require very expensive tech, like a kiosk or Bluetooth locks or those things. I don't see any ROI in that. So I'm sorry if Janice is here and one of your products. It's not that it's a bad product at all. It's just personally, our way of doing this to save money. And so we really don't see value in overcomplicating it. I think we both see pretty eye to eye on that. I don't think you overcomplicate your tenant experience. If you do, you're going to have frustrated tenants that don't know how to use your product. They're going to wish that it was simple, that you don't have all these expensive things. And who as an owner wants to retrofit a facility or drop $30,000 on a kiosk? That defeats the purpose of saving that cost. So we're pretty aligned, I think, in not overcomplicating your solution.
Yeah, I agree with that. That the more complicated your solution is, the more you actually do need a human there. So to his point, that communication factor comes into play there. And then also, I just wanted to say that I'm still this high. So I've known him since he was shorter than me.
Yeah.
All right. So our first big question, we have a series of questions that we're just going to answer back and forth. So our first question is, an on-site manager worth the cost? With the technology we have, isn't it more efficient to do it all online and just 1099 things like maintenance and unit cleanup? So Brett, I'll come to you.
Yeah, so it really is all going to depend on the size of the facility. That's where hybrid comes in. So we've figured out if you are over 500 units, basically, unless you just have the most pristine facility in the greatest market, you don't have terrible tenants, you're going to require some more man hour than once a week, just period. There's no way to keep up a facility. But the difference is where that whole model of having a manager, are they the valuable piece? Let's be honest, okay? I've been to 10,000 stores probably in my lifetime. I used to have a running tally at every show I would speak at for the previous week when we were doing due diligence audits, how many stores I went to with a sign up that said manager would be back. And usually it was about half the stores I went to in any market, there was always a sign, whether it was lunchtime, whether it wasn't lunchtime, that there was one up. And the problem traditionally is that manager that we're hiring has to be good at marketing. They have to be good at sales. They have to be your maintenance arm. They have to have great customer service. And there are not a lot of human beings that fit all of those categories. Usually they're a little bit good at one or two of those things. And so in our model, it's not getting rid of that person. It's moving the responsibilities that they do and being able to pay a person less for those responsibilities. So it's really then focusing on maintenance of the facility, the physical aspects. If you're doing hybrid and a tenant wants to see a unit, they'll walk them out there and show it to them, but they're not going to take payments. They're not doing your collection calls. They're not doing your marketing. They're not doing your revenue management. Instead, we just use specialized departments that do all that remotely. So a department that only does revenue management or only does auctions. And it's that way across. So I still believe in the people, that you have to have human beings working at these facilities or with these facilities, but in very different capacity than we're used to.
So Brett, what would you say is your percent of expenses that you pay for a 1099 contracted employee?
Yeah, so for most of our stores, we are somewhere at about $600 a month for a 1 to 2 day a week person, somewhere right about there.
Do you know what percent of expenses that is off the top of your head?
Ooh, almost nothing. $600 on so you're talking $7,200 a year at a facility, depending on size, could be, and that doesn't really scale up until you get to those bigger facilities. So just depends on the income of the facility, but you're talking very negligible.
Yeah, very small. So for us, the national averages, the SSA Almanac has us off-site employees is about 9.7% of expenses, and then on-site is 22.2%. But we at Universal operate at 11%. So we are very lean and mean there. So we're coming in pretty low, while at the same time we're increasing the income as well with the ancillary services. But also I lost my train of thought. You mentioned something else. Oh, the employees, it's hard to find a person who is the jack of all trades, who can do everything all at once. That's why at Universal, we hire for attitude and train for skill. We absolutely train for skill so that as long as they have the right attitude and aptitude to learn things, then we can train them up so that they can be an expert in all things. We want that person to be an expert in that property, at that property, and know it hook and by crook, and also in their market. And so as a different model for us, we don't believe that a department that's located somewhere else in the United States has good market knowledge of that particular facility, or they don't know the customer base at that particular facility. So we believe there's value there in the human on site being very familiar with that facility.
Honestly, it's a good point in that for most groups, especially groups that try to do it remote, they really don't have a lot of good offsite information. I think we benefited just because our bread and butter was Storage 101, which is the largest consulting firm in the business for it. We do about 90% of all the feasibility studies in the country for storage. And so we have an unusual aptitude for market knowledge that most people don't. We can apply that on both sides, but you're right. In most cases, if you have groups that are trying to do it that don't have that database of knowledge, it's very difficult to really understand your market. And you have to make sure if you're going to do it on your own or go with a different company that might not have that insight, you got to do a lot of research into local businesses. That even affects your SEO, naming local schools, naming businesses, calling local businesses to maybe try and get charities involved, a lot of things that locally, if you don't have an ability to do that research, you're probably missing out. Where if you start with a manned facility, even if they've never been in that market before, when you have somebody locally there, you can have those things already be a part of the hire.
Yeah, agree. Ready for the next one? Fully remote might save you money on overhead, but doesn't it actually cost you some customers due to the quality of the interaction?
Yeah, according to averages for occupancy, the answer is no. Typically in the beginning, we have a fall when we take over a facility. We see that with facilities that were mom and pop run, typically for 10 plus years. They had never done rate increases. They didn't have tenant insurance, been the same person that's been there forever. And typically, depending on size of the facility, that could be a 2% drop in occupancy. It can be a 5% drop in occupancy, and usually falls somewhere in between. That's the initial piece. But we're doing a lot of transitions because you hit them with rate increases, tenant insurance, convenience fees, all these things. All of a sudden, we're doing auctions. We don't do partial payments. We don't do payment plans. We're very strict for our owners that we manage for across our roughly 200 stores. And for that to be an average when we're cutting typically for a manned store anywhere from $50,000 to $80,000 worth of expenses and supporting costs, you'd have to lose 50% occupancy on most stores to make up that difference. So in our case, it's certainly well worth it, where for others, it might not be.
Yeah, that's true. Where I see a loss or a difference in this is I did some research into some markets where we have fully manned facilities and there are existing operators who have completely remote facilities. And I did some price comparisons and some reputation comparisons online as well. And what I found in 3 separate markets where I was able to match up, our reviews on average were a full point higher, like going from 3 to 4.5 or even higher. The number of reviews that are stacked in on that Google business page were more than double in all cases. It's oftentimes 10 times as many reviews that are being left by humans, which contributes to your SEO factors, contributes to showing up higher in search, and Google's going to put you out in front in the search with more reviews. Also, I found that on average, we had 65.8% higher rental rates for a 10 by 10 climate, 59.2% higher rental rates for a 5 by 10 climate, and 45.3% higher rates on a 10 by 20 drive up or standard unit. Those are big, solid numbers. So even if with a takeover where we go in and have managers come on site and we're fully manned, we are going to have those same pain points that you have. We're going to start enforcing the late fees, and we're going to start holding auctions and things like that. We're able to ameliorate a lot of that because there's a manager on site to provide that good customer service and explain things. And then we can charge a higher rental rate as well.
Yeah, I like the reviews one because we have a remote management council. So all the other largest remote management companies in the business, I think it's about 12 other businesses like Red Dot, 10 Federal, a bunch of others, Patriot Holdings. And so we all meet, and our company leads that council to talk about stuff. And one of the very first meetings we ever had, I've solved a lot of problems with remote, but we couldn't solve reviews. Because if you've ever worked at a physical location with a manager, you get people to leave reviews when you're face to face because you talk to them, and you feel as a human being when you've promised someone to their face you're going to leave a review, you're probably about 60-70% of the time going to actually leave that review because you're going to be back to the facility in a week. You're going to see that manager, and you're going to be afraid that you told them that you're going to leave a review and you did not. And for a long time, we all struggled as one of our biggest topics of how do we do that? Technology ended up paving the way. We use Swivel for a lot of different reasons. It uses AI. And they built for us, basically just for us, and now it's available to anybody, a review solicitation platform. And so far this year across our stores, we've had about 650 reviews with an average rating of 4.6 stars.
That's great.
But it's only because of that new development and figuring out how to communicate with tenants, where probably the last time we had this conversation, we had not cracked that piece of the puzzle. But it's funny to see the developments in learning how to communicate with tenants and where you should communicate with them. To the point about rental rates, because we get questions a lot on this too. So we're in a lot of markets where we compete with CubeSmart and Extra Space. In some of those markets, we're triple what their rates are. I don't know if any of you guys have watched the economics of those companies, but I'm not as good at revenue management as they are. And I'll never be. Those companies are worth, I think Extra Space is now in the $25 billion range, somewhere around there, 2025. CubeSmart will probably, there's a rumor that something could happen in the industry and it'd probably be around $18 billion. And yet they have low rental rates. A lot of people ask why, but it's an Extra Space model that they created themselves. And then it was followed by a bunch of different other companies. Is they realized for a lease up property in a very competitive market, for a new build, they just shatter rates. And they do a lease up strategy that typically within the first 3 to 4 months, they do an aggressive rate increase. I've seen markets, they do a 300% rate increase in the first 90 days. What they realized is it's money. And that company has a lot of stockholders and they realized they were making more over. And I think that's not a fair way for us to operate either. I think in reality, you have to be somewhere between. You treat every store very differently. I've got stores that run akin to that model, but really do a 4 to 6 month first rate increase. And I've got ones that are 100 or 10 to 20% above the next competitor because they're so occupied. And we do regular rate increase schedules and we don't have to do those initials. But across 200 stores, I think one of the differences, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think you guys let your managers handle revenue management.
No, we actually handle it at the corporate office. The managers initiate it, but we manage it at the corporate office.
Yeah, so they make recommendations and then you guys change it. Yeah. Yes. Nothing wrong with that. There are plenty of other companies that do that. We use, technically, we have data analysts on site, and then we use products like Veritech that go in and just do data analysis across all those stores. So they look at ROI for all of our owners, percent returns, how fast things lease up. And so it used to be that I believe in fully manual, humanized rates until you see the return changes when you put data behind it. And that's really just become all sorts of advancements in technology and algorithms. We're here to make money. And so if the data can prove that you can make 20 or 30% more per store by doing certain revenue strategies, we're going to do that. But I don't think that's necessarily the right answer for everybody. I think you have to do what's going to be best for your store and fall somewhere on that big spectrum between one side or the other.
Yeah, and we use a tool inside. Does anyone use District Manager by Storage Income Pros? It's a great software tool. They have a new tool inside, a new module called Standard Rate Generator, where they use data from StoreTrack. They scrape your competitors. You can set 4 competitors inside of it, and you can toggle whether you want, for every single unit type, whether you want to meet, stay above, or stay below any particular competitor or any other parameter that you have inside there. So that's why I say we have started managing that at the corporate level, because the manager of the store is actually actively watching this as well. We are watching the competitors very closely and pulling that live data every day just to see where we're at. All right, you ready for the next one?
Yeah.
Where's the break-in size for a facility when you might say remote or on-site manager makes sense?
Yeah, it's probably around the 500 range. At that point, having more man hours is just essential. Again, unless it's just the most beautifully run Wonderland facility and the best tenants and these crazy high rates and no one leaves trash, probably about 500 is where you say, okay, I need 15 hours, 20 hours, all the way up to 40 hours. I think once you get to 600, 700, it makes sense to have a hybrid approach where someone's there 30, 40 hours a week. Just in a lot more reduced capacity, obviously, but we probably agree on that break point would be my guess.
Yeah, I think up to 200 units, it's really good. I think that's a good place to start for a fully remote managed property, especially if you have a sister property nearby. You can do a hub and spoke thing. Between 200 and 500 units, I would go for more of a hybrid model where you do have someone on site 2 to 3 days a week just to check in and man the office for those days. And then anything above 500 or 45,000 net rentable square feet, I want a human there at least 5 days a week to manage that property, because there's a lot going on at that property when you have that many units. And so that's where it makes sense for us. Yeah. All right. Next one. What are the pros and cons of a manager handling everything versus a department handling each aspect? I think we covered this earlier, the department can specialize in that particular item or field, whether it's marketing or revenue management or options, things like that. For us, the manager knows the market a little bit better. They know their customer base a little bit better. So there's pros and cons on both sides, which I think we discussed. Do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I used to just have this joke all the time, but I very rarely have met anybody that can replace a door and a hasp and fix toilets that was really good at data analysis for ROI, or that was
Right.
really good at sales.
Yeah.
It's typically a little bit of each one. And so I think even if you are, obviously you try to hire the best. What they do, they have a great training. I've been to many of your stores throughout the years for due diligence, and they have wonderful managers who are very good. But for most people, the ability for you to find a good person and have a training regimen by yourself that you're going to go in and try to make this person do, you just use a management company at that point, because they're going to be much better at training a manager to work for you than you will ever dream of. I don't care how good you think you are at the business. Let them use policies and procedures that have been honed over a long period of time to make them good at their job.
Yeah, absolutely. And also for us, we leave the heavy lifting maintenance type stuff to the experts. If we need doors tensioned or the gate repaired or the toilet fixed, we're going to call in an expert for that. We're going to hire the vendor to come and take care of that for us. So for the most part, the managers are really watching revenue, take care of auction situations, managing the customers, pulling in reviews, and doing the marketing in the marketplace. So that's very important to get out there and market your facility to drum up traffic. Even more important nowadays, too, as a marketer, I am very concerned about the drop in search engine demand for keywords that related to self-storage. The demand has dropped dramatically. We are actually below 2019 demand right now in search online. So if you think about that, during COVID, we got really lucky and everybody was going online searching for a place to put all their stuff out of the spare bedroom so that they could have an office at home or they could have a little schoolroom for their kids who needed to be homeschooled through COVID. So they had to get all their stuff out of their house. We had a huge boon in storage at that point. Now we're getting back below the demand that was the average in 2019. So we have to generate our own traffic. We can't just put things online and people come running anymore. We have to get out there and create use cases and explain to customers, potential customers, why they could use storage, because it's an empty room. So you have to speak to their why do you need it and get out there and market to them that way.
Yeah.
So,
To that point, we lost 2/3. So as of August, 2/3 of all Google searches for self-storage were down. So 2/3 of people searching in that area.
huge.
And it's why occupancies, if you look at any of the public calls going on with any of the REITs, they're having to explain away how their expenses are up 30%, but yet their income is down significantly. Rates are down 80% in some of their markets. And if you're going to do anything in storage right now, it used to be 2 years ago, you could do whatever you wanted and you would succeed. You would have a home run store. We had records of selling stores that were just obscene for the size and what the returns were. We took advantage of the market. Too many people bought incorrectly. They overbought, they overpaid. All of a sudden values started plummeting. Cash is way too expensive. So if you're going to do it now and you're getting into it or you have facilities, make sure you have professional help to do your marketing, period.
Yep.
You cannot compete the way that you used to. It's becoming you have to be so good at the in the weeds portion to generate leads and convert those leads. I couldn't imagine not being able to rent at 7:00 at night or 7:00 in the morning and where people aren't working. You have people now all of a sudden working more hours with less breaks. Well, it used to be you could plan that during lunch every day of the week, you would have rentals that come through for your manager, and then they would offset that. People just aren't coming anymore during that time. And so you really have to be very creative and willing to capture rentals at any time of day, any time of night, whenever you can to be able to compete. I don't believe in just letting people have technology. So we have our call centers 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. We give them real people to rent over the phone. Because if you don't give them a real option, you're going to have a very large portion of your base that just aren't going to rent. We find that about 60% of people still rent over the phone, start to finish, with one of our agents. You have to be able to do that. I don't know how people compete. We've had stores that rented 130 units in 3 days. I don't know how, even if you didn't have the capability to rent online, I don't know how you service that. Most rentals, but for a manager, take about 30 minutes to complete. 30 minutes on average. It would have taken a month to be able to rent those units. So what most companies are doing now, though, is they have a call center and if you have traditional management, so that you're trying to cover both, so that you can still rent units, you can get reservations in, you can do that. I think at a bare minimum, call centers are important no matter which way you run your facility to capture those rentals.
I agree. The call centers pick up the slack when the manager's on site and busy with a physical customer in front of them. The call center can still service anyone calling. But to your question, though, about related to marketing. Yes, we handle social media marketing for our stores, and our managers chime in with the very local content. They work with charities, or they have an on-site event or things like that. They provide the very local content for the social posts, but we build a use case for in our social media postings of why people can use storage. A real estate agent can suggest that their clients stage their homes and store their stuff so that the home is uncluttered and it looks better to prospective buyers, things like that. There's use cases out there for everything. So we try to tell that story online. The other part of the marketing is our managers actually get out and go visit businesses and shake the hands and kiss the babies. And it's like being a politician asking for votes, but you're just going and explaining to people that, hey, we pay you for your referrals. You may not need storage today, but you may know somebody who does. So if you know somebody, please send them our way and we'll pay you $50. No expiration, no limit. When they sign a lease with us, you get money. And that's our main message. You don't go out there marketing and say, hey, I've got 10 by 10s on sale today. That's not the way it works. You build a use case and you tell people, if you know anybody who needs storage, please send them my way. And you become that trusted community resource for storage. And that's what helped drives traffic as well. So
we've got, again, somewhere around, I think, 200 stores in 29 states. And so we don't do a lot of grassroots. We do social media. We do Facebook. We have Go Local, who's our marketing partner. They do ProMax, which is a bunch of different social media platforms to be able to advertise on. You do need to be responding to Google reviews. That's utmost important. We do it within 24 hours. I'm sure they do the exact same. It's vitally important. But 87% of the population right now, 87% rents because of price. Another 88% rent from the first two facilities that they call. And it has nothing to do with any arbitrary measure. It's, did you show up on Google? Did you answer the phone? Those are the most important things. And then you do have to have a referral word of mouth. I would suggest we give tenants referral business because some generation of that is going to be from active tenants referring people. But if our occupancies are the same at a lease store, I just don't believe in grassroots marketing being that large of an appeal. On average, it's 2 to 3% of your base is going to come from grassroots. It's a very small amount for the money that it costs. Nothing wrong with doing it. If you live locally, by all means, you can do it. But it's such a small base, it doesn't affect our occupancy. So a little controversial there.
Yeah, this is where we differ. Universal, we're pulling about 30% of our tenants from our grassroots marketing efforts. 30%, that's a huge chunk. That's almost equal to our internet marketing efforts as well. We really get out there. We hold on-site events. We draw people to the property and show them. The events are all set up to display our offering, to show them how the gate works, show them how the elevator bays, show them the loading dock, whatever features and amenities we have that set us apart in our marketplace, because we always make sure that we do stand out in a marketplace. We want to show that off during the on-site event so that the people who've come to our on-site event to get their picture taken with the Easter Bunny, or to do the Easter egg hunt, or pictures with Santa, or a yard sale, or any number of things. We do a lot of charity things where we let little league teams hold a car wash in our area, in the parking area, all kinds of stuff that we can do to draw people on site. Every single visitor to your site can walk away with knowledge about how you operate, what there is, so that when they go to refer someone with that dangling $50 referral, they have knowledge. They can say, if you need storage, you really need to go down to Stacy's Storage down the street, because they have the loading dock. They have the lights that come on when you walk through the building. They've got all these nice features and amenities. Those people unwittingly become our marketing army, and it grows word of mouth a little better there. We do a lot of grassroots marketing, and therefore we focus on it. It's our secret sauce. So we do pull about 30% of our leases from grassroots marketing. It is worth the effort in our case.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, if our occupancies are the same, maybe it's just we have a different way of doing it to get to that same occupancy, because the averages are the same. And so I guess that's why I don't see the ROI in it. Again, there's nothing wrong with it. What I think a lot of people hate to hear is almost 60% of your entire rental base are millennials and Gen Z. That's from the SSA demand study of last year. You could not pay me to go to a self-storage barbecue. I'm not going to go and do antiquities shopping there. I'm not going to go and do these events. It does not mean that there are not plenty of people in the community that will do it. But we used to train everyone in doing those. We used to train everyone to sponsor a local Little League team, have barbecues, have people coming to the facility, do grand openings. And then it just, all of a sudden, we were achieving the same occupancy without doing those things. And part of that's a shift in the base and how we do things. Part of it's a shift in marketing and trying to do it the new way that's going to capture people instead of the old way. There's nothing wrong with that, especially if you live in the community and you want people to see you as an owner, as a part of that community, and you go to the church there and you're involved in community boards. Having yourself as a center of the community is not a bad idea. It's a good thing that people around you and can trust you, even if you have a management company. It's a good way to get people involved. But if you're just an investor buying a facility somewhere and you don't live in that market and do it, we just personally don't see the value in that. And the money that you spend on that and having someone dedicated to that to achieve the same occupancy with greater NOI, it's just not there, personally.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're spending 22 cents per square foot on our marketing efforts right now. Is that what yeah, including internet? Yeah. So 30 cents a square foot is not a whole lot to ask for those marketing efforts that really, yeah.
The salary of the person that goes
Yeah.
there. That's the main point that I'm arguing is
The
if you're
salary.
paying $60,000 a year, then that also has to go into that. If you're using that person for your on-site, that's equivocally in the cost.
Yeah, that's fair. But speaking to your point about millennials and Gen Zs, some of our marketing efforts we're pushing towards lately have been networking groups. These young business people who don't have the cash flow to join the local BNI at $1,000 a year. They haven't made it yet, but they want to make a name for themselves and they want to network with their peers. We've created networking clubs that meet on site at our facilities. So they are coming to our facilities. If you reach out to them and give them a place to join a networking club for free, where they can network among their peers, that's a great way to reach out to them. There's also different types of marketing messages we can send out to them through email and through social media. We can create an Instagram following with videos, how-to videos, and gamify the marketing efforts as well. So that does reach that audience specifically. What can a manager do that remote can't? So I'll take this one and then you tell me what remote can do. How about that? All right. The way we see it, a manager can deliver personal service with a smile and become part of the community. We can do the marketing, the grassroots marketing, of course. We can hold fundraisers. We can give back to the community. We can recognize facility issues faster and respond a little bit faster. We can sell boxes and supplies, which you can't really do in a remote environment. That's a little ancillary income at the bottom line. Then we can also generate more reviews. Those are the main things that I think a on-site manager is better at. Becoming part of the community, watching rental rates as well, and just getting out there and being friends with their competitors as well to share referrals back and forth there.
Yeah, and some of those are great points. We get them a lot. I'm a data person, so I always like to go back to that. So the average for supplies in the United States last year for merchandise and storage was about $400 a month. Every store is very different. Some do $20,000 a year, but $400 a month is just not a lot. However, I still believe in merchandise sales. We were the first company to get an online agreement with supply side to ship goods directly to tenants today. And so it's 2-day shipping to anybody. They buy it through the website. Any of those boxes, they get them cheaper than any of our competitors sell them in store. The owner gets a cut of that. We get a cut of that because I think, again, modernizing it. Why wouldn't we ship the goods directly to the tenants? Have you ever helped someone? So I've actually been a manager of a facility. That's growing up. That's what I did. And helping a mom carry 10 extra large boxes out there to fit into her Kia that's not going to fit anyways is a miserable experience. You don't want to do it. So why not try to take advantage of making money, saving the payroll, and then still getting all of your income from selling the merchandise? Even trucks now, U-Haul created U-Haul 24/7 so that you can rent trucks remotely without someone there. I will say there's a caveat though. You better have someone more than 1 day a week to do that because they don't tell you this, but you still have to clean the trucks, move them, clean them. So typically, depending on income for U-Haul, if you're going to do it, I would say probably 15 hours a week. So you do the math. If it's doing a bunch of money in trucks, that's well worth it. Have somebody. But if it's only going to do $1,000 a month, probably not worth it. Reviews, totally. Last time we talked, we had that same answer. And then we cracked the code there. And good luck getting much better reviews than we've gotten. But those are all valid points. And I think a lot of people, the problem with remote was there were only really 2 companies that ventured into it before we started this company and did it on a large scale. It was 10 Federal. And it was Red Dot now has hundreds and hundreds of stores. 10 Federal invented DaVinci. They have all sorts of funds that they bought and sold. We were the first one to do third party for remote. So we really had the trial and error. Just like anything else in the world, when something starts to work, people see the value. You see what all of our clients ourselves were selling stores for, the value add proposition. You had 100 copycats come out. What happens in that case, the quality control, we get a lot of people that hurt the reputation of something because they don't do it correctly. And that has existed in traditional management a long time. We can tell you about hundreds of third-party management companies that have come and gone that claim to understand it and wrecked facilities to the ground. So I think no matter if you're going to do management, you're going to do traditional, or you're going to do remote, you work with partners that are good with you, that you have a relationship with, that have the same goals as you, that you have the same idea of how you're going to run that facility and what you believe in, and then pick people that are good at it. They have a long list of clients that will tell you stellar things because they've always been a good management company. They've always been one of the best. Just like we have a long line, if you want to do remote, that will tell you the same thing, but just choose your partner carefully. If you don't go with a company like one of us, that's fine. Just make sure though you vet them for sure.
Absolutely. I agree with that. You guys do a great job with the remote as well. All right. So here's a question. Does the physical curb appeal suffer by not having someone there full time?
If you're in unless you're willing, I keep going back to that hybrid approach, right? How much are you willing to have somebody go by?
Yep.
And every market's very different. There are plenty of sites because we don't allow our 1099 to do the landscaping. They don't do the signage or anything like that. We find vendors on contracts that go and keep it clean. But every facility needs something. We have some sites that are pristine at 1 day a week, but they're 200 units. You've got some facilities that need somebody there 3 or 4 days to keep the property pristine.
Mm-hmm.
You just has to relate to the type of facility you have, the market it's in, the CapEx need that it has when you took over. Everything's handled a little bit differently.
Yeah. I think having a person there more days per week is better for curb appeal for sure. The worst thing that can happen is that one of your tenant identifies the fact that somebody's left a couch behind the back unit or there's trash strewn about or something else. The last person you want reporting that to you is your
That's right.
tenant. You want your managers to discover that first. So having someone there more days per week does definitely help the curb appeal. And you can respond to those things a little bit faster. All right. So I think this is our last question. What circumstances would you recommend a potential customer going remote versus manned? And we've covered this really. It depends on the size of your property, what your financial goals are as well. The larger property, you're going to need more humans, and smaller property, you could probably do remote, especially if you have a sister property nearby where you can do a kind of hub and spoke. You agree with that?
Yeah, it's all about goals. We say this in just if I was doing a talk on third-party management in general, it's all about your goal and what you want. Make sure it aligns with the company that you choose. Look at the pro formas. That is always important. There are a lot of management companies that once you get the pro forma and you compare it to them or us, you're going to be like, what the hell is this? This makes no sense. Look at what they're spending on marketing. What are they using as profit centers? Look at the data, get plenty of leads, understand plenty of references, and actually see what the results are for what it is that you want to align with.
Yeah. I think in general, up to 200 units, you can do remote. Like we said earlier, 300, 400 units, you may want to do hybrid. 500 or more units or 45,000 square feet and higher, you want to have some humans on site to help with those customers, especially as you get leased up and get full. You're going to have more and more customers the more you grow your income, your occupancy. Yeah.
And I, just to that point, because last time we talked, we probably didn't have this, but when we talk about those large sites, because we run sites that are 700 units, 1,000 units, and we call them hybrid. Mm-hmm. Even some of those sites, owners want somebody there 40 hours a week. The only difference is they just don't take payments, sit at a point of sale. They take care of the property. They show units if someone wants to see one. And instead of renting the unit, they take them through on an iPad, scan a QR code sign. They show them how to rent, but we don't want them taking payments, cash. You get into legal issues there if you don't want to take cash in some states now. So it's a limited capacity. Instead of them doing 100 activities, they're really only doing the most simple ones while the rest of the company handles the rest. But you can hybrid by all well means is 40 hours a week on those big sites if that's what you need. It's just a difference in what we let the managers do on site.
Yeah. And several of our properties have gone cashless as well. So it's just a safety concern. It just depends on the market and where you are. Yeah. But I think that's it. That's all we had. Does anybody have any questions? Anne's got a question.
So the question was, because we use specialized departments instead of one centralized manager at a facility that handles a bunch of the responsibilities, how is that cost allocated to the site? The answer is we don't charge it. We don't pass it through to our owners at all. So all of those other departments are fully included in our management fee. Because I agree with you, if you're going to do remote, we can't then charge you for the call center. We can't charge you for our revenue management department. That's just how we do business. So yeah, we do not pass any of those costs through. Yeah, now if that's, I'm not going to name any of them. But just again, ask for pro formas because there are some out there that will bury every single one of their costs as a profit center into every line item you have. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you'll be paying for their district managers, which again, if they have 15 stores at $15,000 a year as a line item, that district manager is not getting paid $300,000 a year. So that is a hell of a profit center. Same thing if you see one that's $80,000 a year payroll for a manager making $14 an hour. What are you paying for? And so just be really careful. There are plenty, either remote or traditional companies that will destroy you in those line items if you don't actually ask questions. What is it covering to reference your facility?
Yeah. The question is, what if an owner is hesitant to hire a third-party management company, jump into a long-term contract? They're not sure if that's the right fit for them, but they know that they need help on site. The manager's not so great, maybe with collections or revenue management or marketing, things like that. The answer is yes. As a company, you do provide consulting services. We can create a package specifically for any owner to target any particular needs. We can do operational consulting. We can do marketing consulting. We can do some training, help your manager get up to speed. The goal for us would eventually be hopefully to earn your trust and become your management company so that you can sit back and collect that check on the 15th of every month, where we're making more profit for you every month. But if it ends at just consulting, we'll be glad to do that too. We're glad to do as much or as little as you need.
Yes. For us, we do call center only services, marketing only services, some a la carte stuff. And yeah, same thing if anyone has
Sure.
that question.
I think what's unique about both of our companies is we're here to help everyone as a whole.
That's right.
To help the entire industry rise and do better. There's a lot of bad operators out there, bad actors that really they're not in it for the people. They're not in it to serve the end line customer, the tenant. There's people out there who have trauma and they need storage, and we're here to provide it. And we're here to help owners who want the same thing, to help provide that service, to make money in the doing of that.
Yeah, so it's all dependent on size. So our management fees might be somewhat similar to you guys at 5-6%.
We're 6%.
Okay, yeah. So we do a flat rate based on size. So on a lot of sites that could be 3% depending on the size, or at some of them, because we are our minimum $1,650 if you had 120 units for our management fee. But the big difference is because like you're still gonna have marketing, you're still gonna have marketing costs, you'll still have R&M, repair and maintenance costs, you'll still have your utilities or whatever those are. The difference is really the biggest one's payroll, period. Because it's going to be anywhere from $600 a month to some other competitors, not them, have payroll to minimum of $80,000 a year per site, which is just obscene. They're probably more in like the 50,000 would be my guess, 50,
About
60.
right, 40 to 50.
Yep. And so that's going to be the biggest one. But really, most management companies should have comparable other stats like software or your utilities or anything like that. You still pass through.
And also with any kind of management company, you're gonna see economies of scale
Yeah,
where it
that's
comes
right.
to software and marketing items and repair and maintenance and things like that. So
That's right.
that helps. The larger the company, the more economy of scale you have. But you also have to be careful that they don't nickel and dime you to death.
That's
like Brett
exactly right.
Those
Yeah.
line items can grow. Any other questions?
One of the biggest questions we always got was, how do you overlock units and then take off the overlock when someone wants to pay? And there's been a million iterations. SpiderDoor has a version of it now that Aaron put out. DaVinci has a version. You can do it yourself with locks off Amazon, which is how we originally did it before DaVinci. We like DaVinci just because it's integrated with the software. So like our manager goes by, puts on the overlock. So the tenant pays at 10 o'clock at night. They get texted a code immediately to take off the overlock and throw it in a Dropbox. I think AI is probably the next step as far as where we're seeing really cool uses, but that's not just for remote. That's really for anything. Call Finder is an AI system that does quality control for calls. We get like 50,000 calls a month, and this software listens to thousands and thousands of those and then presents our quality control team with issues from the call. So they don't have to just listen to one-to-one call all day long trying to find issues. And then we have AI chat like Swivel, which I think you guys use as well.
Not Swivel yet.
Okay.
Yes, we're looking.
That's right. But it's one of the coolest products I've seen because you're giving people the option to younger people to interact with this chatbot to answer most questions. But we work live agents where as soon as someone wants to talk to a real person, or if it asks a question they can't answer, a real person jumps in. So I think you're going to see some stuff like that. I'm a little afraid of the AI call center agents that are starting to get pushed.
Yeah.
I could not imagine trying to talk to an AI call center agent. I'd want to blow my brains out. There's no way. But you're going to see some companies starting to do that. And I think that's a little too far for this time.
Yeah, I agree. I think AI is advancing rapidly, much more rapidly than any of us really know. I just gave a roundtable discussion last week at the Self-Storage Association in Washington about using AI in marketing. And there's a lot of really neat things you can do. I've got actually a cheat sheet if anybody wants one. I have them with me in my briefcase. I just remembered that I have them. But one of the most remarkable things that I've found that I'm able to do with AI right now is inside ChatGPT, which is everybody's gold standard of AI marketplace. If you subscribe to ChatGPT 4, which is the GPT Plus, it opens up a whole other realm of more GPTs that are specialized. One of those is review analysis. So it's clunky. Most of us have a reputation platform like reputation.com, or we use Yext or Sochi. Bird Eye's another one. That pulls your own reviews from your store And it gives you a sentiment analysis and you can see whether people are happy and you can build a word cloud, see what they're mentioning the most on site. But what you can't do is you can't analyze your competitors through that. So I found a way through AI, through this review analyzer, you can actually go and manually copy your competitors' reviews and pop them all into a Word document. Then go in and take out all the extra characters, take out the stars, things like that, that AI can't interpret. Then copy and paste that entire document, the text from it, and pop it into the ChatGPT review analyzer and say, please please analyze these reviews for sentiment, friction points for customers, and complaints. And it'll come back and tell you everything that your competition's doing wrong. And then you can position your company against that in the marketplace, which is very powerful. Mm-hmm. So there's just a lot of ways you can use it. That's just one of the ways I wanted to mention.
So she said, when you take over a property and you switch it to unmanned, are there ever ones that just don't work? No, but there are different requirements for what you do. In our case, we do a lot of hand holding. When we take over, we give, especially if it was a traditionally ran store, we give a grace period. We're not going to do auctions in the first 60 days. We're going to communicate, send a welcome letter to every single tenant. We're going to email them, and we do personal calls to every single tenant. We also, if they call in, we'll waive late fees for those first 30 days as well. We let them do checks and money orders for the first 60 days because we want to wean people off of it. We give them a credit to get a debit, like a Visa reloadable debit card off their rent if they really don't have a debit or credit card, which is crazy. And so you have to handhold. I think some sites just require it more than others, that personal touch a little bit more. But if you just try to hand these stores off and you say, all right, starting today, this is how we do business and you're going to get all these new fees, and it doesn't matter if you had a manager there or not, you're going to hurt that tenant base. And so you have to do warming up the water to boil the lobster, right? You can't just turn it all the way up in the beginning, and you want there to be some humanity in how you deal with them, or else they're not going to want to store there. So you do a pretty adequate amount of handholding to ensure that all stores can be converted.
Yeah. You're the most humane, unmanned company.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. And we do the same thing when we,
that's right.
We do the same thing when we take over. It's a very similar process. I think they do a remarkable job when they do take over properties that way. It's almost manned, but without men.